Hide this.
Yes.
So good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's Dr. Rose here. I'm at Bloom Transformation Center, and welcome to the Dr. Rose Show podcast. And this is a podcast that if you have not called your friends, your girlfriends, your mamas, just everybody, call them and tell them to tune in because this is a very, very relevant topic that is necessary here in Mental Health Awareness Month for us to talk about. We're talking about narcissism today. And that's a term that's thrown out so frequently in our society. But very few people really understand the dynamics and the particulars of this particular disorder. It's not a mental illness, it's a disorder. So tonight we're going to just delve into it. We're going to talk about what is narcissism. We're going to talk about key characteristics of a narcissist, the effects, the emotional and, believe it or not, physical effects of being in a narcissistic relationship. And we'll also talk about how do you heal? How do you heal from a narcissistic relationship? So tonight I am joined by a good friend of mine. We go way back. Way back. Way back to
1990.
We graduated 1990.
1986.
1986.
Yes.
Linda Walton Little. Dear friend of mine, very accomplished. I'm sure many of you have, if you don't know her, you've seen her. Just look her up. She has tons of accomplishments. I'm so proud of you.
Aww.
Just so proud of you. We from the east side, y'all. We came from the east side and we made good. We made good. Yes. But Linda, what was it, about a month or two ago when you reached out?
Yeah, maybe about a month or so, 6 weeks ago.
About 6 weeks ago, reached out to me and she said, you know what? I think we should do a podcast on narcissism.
Yeah.
And you guys know me, I'm always talking about narcissism. I'm talking about just different personality disorders, but I've never done, this is the first podcast I've done on it.
Really?
Yeah. And I've been doing podcasts for years.
Well, I'm honored to be the
I'm
first.
honored to have you here. So I just want you, if you don't mind, Linda, to kind of share with the audience, what was your motivation for even reaching out?
Well, you know what, Rose? I was thinking about what could we do? What can I do to raise and increase awareness around the importance and significance of mental health on everyday life?
Mm-hmm.
And narcissism is like a hidden disorder because most people with narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, are highly functioning.
Yes.
And so, and their victims are usually shamed or really in the shadows and afraid to come forward. And so, I know this because in my work,
mm-hmm.
I deal with a lot of victims who've been impacted by the devastation that's left,
yes.
emotionally, physically. I know we're going to talk about
financially,
all these things,
all of that. Yes.
From narcissists and people with this personality disorder. And so, you know what? And just recently, I was talking to a homeless woman who was sharing her story with me, and how her husband, because they're still married, she had to flee. She had to leave him because of the devastation he was having on her and her children. Yeah. She had a son who had fallen into substance abuse. She herself was homeless because they fled Ohio to come here to get away from him. And his, the narcissism can span to different co-occurring conditions.
Yeah.
His was alcoholism.
Yes.
And it led to abuse. And so
physical and
emotional. And her recent story is what triggered me to say, you know what? I think we should talk about that.
Yes.
Everybody else is talking about, bipolar, depression, and all the other. This is something that is hidden, and it impacts a lot of people.
So many of us.
But and many of them don't know what it's called. They don't know what it is. So let's talk about what it is.
So let's talk about what it is. Because, and I want you guys to pay attention, because once we go through some key characteristics of narcissists, you may start to really question either current relationships or past relationships. And I know we've shared about our own personal experiences, and we kind of will get into that as well. But let's talk about, before we even get started with that, I want to talk about just some key characteristics of a narcissist. Again, a narcissist, first of all, is just someone who has who presents themselves as really having a very secure, inflated sense of self, and confidence, and well adjusted. But
Charm.
charm, very
Charm.
charming. But in reality, this person has a deep seated sense of insecurity,
Yes.
a deep seated insecurity. And part of the whole play of narcissism is attaching to someone that they can use to kind of just work those insecurities out by actually making that person insecure. It sounds so twisted, but it is what it is.
Their hollowness needs some. They need someone to mirror
Mm-hmm.
in order to continue to present the image that they are secure, that they're intact. And the charm, by the way, is a form of manipulation. It is a way to throw smoke and mirrors,
Yes.
to deflect away from that hollowness, those insecurities that they often possess.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some characteristics, and jump in at any time,
Okay.
if you want to just share your insight. But before I even do that, you were talking about what you saw as far as the prevalence in society, the prevalence of narcissism. You want to discuss that a little bit?
Yes, and it's interesting, Rose, because as I was researching this topic, I'm a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You're a psychologist, clearly, and I work with the mentally challenged, or people who have mental health disorders, or just normal everyday issues.
Yeah.
And so do you. You are trained to look for and see and understand and recognize these signs, and so was I. But we both missed it.
We both missed it.
We both missed it.
Yeah.
And we come from two parent homes, very stable home environments, well loved. I think that contributes to it. That's just my suspicion.
That definitely could. We'll talk about that. Please put a
pin there.
Because I realize in my own experience that was a key factor. Because again, what you just said, you come from a loving home, a two-parent loving home, great childhoods, and individuals. Narcissism, first of all, evolves from individuals that it starts in childhood. It's developed in childhood, either from parents that are emotionally detached. That's typically the prevalence of it, or too permissive. But parents who are emotionally detached or emotionally unavailable, and individuals who did not get the nurturing necessary to form a solid sense of self. And as a result, these personality disorders develop. And like you said a mirror. They look for individuals that represent the grandiose self that they present to the world, but it's not their reality.
It's not real.
It's not real. So let's talk about some characteristics of a narcissist. They work hard to present a perfect image to the world, but you get a completely different person behind closed doors. Okay. The Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Of course, you don't know this when you first start dating.
Of course not.
That's nothing you see, because people will say, and that's the issue. When you start dating these individuals, you get a completely different persona.
They present their best. Actually, they study you.
Yes.
When
they research, study.
Research, and they target their victims. We're going to call them victims. We're not victims, but we're going to call them victims, because that's what we got to call them. They research, and they figure out. They observe you. They ask a lot of questions. They want to understand what makes you tick, so to speak. And then they try to match that.
They match it.
And they want to shower you with everything you love. Give you more of that. That's the love bombing, right?
Yes.
And that's what they call it, love bombing.
Yes.
Where they just shower you with so many things and makes you feel like you are being swept off of your feet by your knight
Prince
in
Charming,
shining armor, your Prince
Did you
Charming.
hear that? I mean, in relation,
or
Princess Charming. But 75% of narcissists, we got to say it, are men. But yeah, people say, oh my gosh, I remember in my situation, a friend of mine who was a psychologist as well was like, oh my gosh, you've got a good one. Look how he's just pouring all of this love onto you. And again, I came from a household where, you see love. I was used to seeing that level of love. So it felt good to finally have that in return. I had no idea what was in the, road ahead for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I think, you know, that's the whole point. They want you to see they want you to be so enamored with all. There's actually, you talk about physiologically, there's
Mm-hmm.
something that happens. There's a physiologic release of hormones when they're love bombing you. That occurs in your brain
Yes.
that creates the sense of euphoria.
Mm-hmm.
And so it draws you to that person. It creates a sense of connectivity. Now, whether they do that intentional or not, I don't think they, but there is statistics that show that there's a high percentage of narcissists who are physicians,
Oh, wow.
specifically surgeons.
Okay.
They choose a profession where they can be perceived in this grandiose,
God
persona,
complex.
this God complex, or a savior,
Mm-hmm.
or something of the like. Or depending on the type of narcissist, they choose professions where they get to work alone
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have to interact with very many people because another characteristic is
IT
they don't
specialist, computer
specialist. That's right. They don't form relationships.
Healthy relationships.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So, and we said before we went on, do we need a part 2 of this? Because it's so much. If you guys saw all the notes I took, you just said something. So, red flags. Let's talk about that.
Red flags.
So, the red flags, love bombing. Linda mentioned that. Again, showering you with so much attention and love early on. Early on. Another red flag is the relationship moving very fast.
Yes.
Very fast. Like, within a few months, it's like, let's get married, or, that type of thing. Yes. Because the goal is to commit you to do something permanent. Mm-hmm. So they cannot, so I'm big on personality, right? And personality types. And one of the things I share with individuals is that we all have, personality stable, consistent, and enduring when we have our well-formed personality. People with personality disorders, particularly narcissism, they understand they cannot keep up that facade forever. It requires too much energy to keep up this facade of this Prince Charming, this knight in shining armor, when in reality you're the complete opposite of that. Yes. So it's imperative for them to get you to commit to some type of commitment. Yeah. That commitment can be get married, or let's have a baby. Something that will tie you into this person forever. Yes. Because once after they get this commitment, I tell people, it was like, seriously, I'm not even joking. It was like almost as soon as the I do's, it was like, who are you? I tell people I do was I don't. It was just like, oh my gosh. But it's some commitment so they can now relax. Can you imagine, like, operating outside of your personality type is like just walking around the world backwards? That you can do it, but it takes so much mental effort. You just want to be yourself. Yes. And so the quicker they can get you to commit to something, the better.
That's right.
The better.
That's right.
Because now they can start this narcissistic, just this play, this dance that just makes them feel good.
A wise clinician said to me once, the only thing that you can do to prevent the entrapment of a narcissist is give it time. I wonder who that was. Is give it time. Take time, because that is a hallmark sign. They have to hurry up and attach themselves to you.
Yeah.
They're so hollow and shallow, and those insecurities you think about it, it's really sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad that they live in this space where they're miserable with themselves all the time, that they feel that they have to connect or attach with someone else. Now, that's our perception, because the research says that they don't feel that.
They don't. But guess what? Oh my girl, we can go for it, because everything, it triggers thoughts when you say that. The fact you said they're very sad. And so seeing them as very sad, what that does is pulls us in more, because you're a nurse, you have your MBA, you work with vulnerable communities. So you are a nurturer by nature. Me as well. So you see someone that you perceive as, oh, this is sad. Even when their narcissistic behaviors start, it's almost a pity you have for them.
And we're the prime targets.
We're
the perfect targets.
Prime target. And so you have this pity, like, oh, they're sad. They've never had anyone. Let me show them love. Let me show them. And as Linda just said, they're not sad.
Oh.
They are actually plugged in, and they are vibrating at their frequency when they are able to.
And very deliberate. Strategic, intentional with every action, every encounter with you.
Yeah.
Is deliberate, and it is intended to convince you that they are something that they're not, but that you want them to be, so that they can reel you in.
Yeah. And because you had that version of what you want them and thought they were, you're always chasing that. You're like, it was there. Where did it go? Where did it go? I know it can come back. So the love bombing, the moving very fast. Also, when you have family and friends of that person, of the narcissistic person, say to you, wow, we've never seen him or her behave this way. Oh, wow, we've never seen him and her or her this happy.
Which can be very flattering.
Which can be extremely flattering, because you think about it, as a woman, you got somebody love bombing you, showering you with stuff, saying all these nice things. It's like, wow, it makes you feel validated.
Somebody really recognizes how awesome I am.
Exactly. And another red flag, which we didn't talk about before, but you just triggered that. Friendships. Do they have solid friendships?
Yes.
I know in my particular situation, there were no real solid friendships. Yeah,
it's looking for rooted friendships, rooted relationships,
not just and rooted. I'm glad you used that word, rooted, because they'll have friends. So friends that live out of state once or twice a year, that type of thing, but nothing rooted. Nothing rooted. Yeah.
No, if you were thinking about, if you were to throw them a party, who would be
your friends?
It'd be your friends.
It'd be your friends.
Your friends.
Yeah.
That is a hallmark sign.
That's a hallmark sign as well. That's a hallmark sign. So the characteristics, since we went through the hallmark signs, we're going to talk about some characteristics. We did, again, present this perfect image. They don't feel empathy.
No.
They do not feel empathy. Once they, then let me just say this, because I think we have to stress this. Once they let their true selves be known. Because again, I don't want you guys to...
They pretend
in the beginning. And say things to you that's just like, wow, how thoughtful.
But if you really pay attention, the things that they say, in context, are not truly feeling words. They don't use those feeling words.
You have like an example, or...
So it's more like, I bet that was hard for you.
Yeah. I'm sorry that had to happen.
I'm sorry that had to happen to you.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you went through that. Yeah.
If you're crying, you could be, really upset about something, and they'll, grab you and hug you, but they can't express that same emotion, to connect with you in that way.
And then once that narcissistic side comes out, it's a different. I remember losing my mom, and and weeks after, I was in Chicago taking a train ride back from Chicago, and I was bawling. I cried for that 5-hour train ride from Chicago to Detroit, sitting next to this person. I mean, this type of cry, and he was angry. There was not one touch, one pat, one, it was like, get over it.
Yes.
It was get over it.
Yes.
It was, and then other situations that others wouldn't even believe a person with any type of humaneness about themselves would even verbalize these type of things at your weakest moments. What they want to do is kick you when you're down.
They want to kick you when you're down.
Yeah. So no empathy, unable to be truly intimate. That's a big one. And
so intimacy, meaning developing those deep emotional connections with an individual. And that goes back to that hollowness, that, being hollow inside. It's hard to imagine being hollow because most of us aren't that way.
Yeah.
But just think about the emptiness that you might feel when you're alone, when you're going through something troubling and there's nobody around for you to connect to. That deep sense of longing to want to connect with someone in a way that we all humanly want to do doesn't exist in a narcissist.
Like they can live in their own world and be okay.
And be okay.
And be okay.
And be okay.
Yeah.
And because they don't have that emotion within them, that childhood trauma that you talked about has eroded that, and it's really a coping mechanism. It's a way that they've developed and grown, and this is how they cope with life.
Yes.
in the circumstances that were presented to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. They say and do hurtful things to try to make you leave first. Yeah. Or even if you don't leave, it's just really to try to just, again, weaken. The whole goal is to weaken your level of self-esteem.
And that is the ultimate premise of that is manipulation. Because they want to control you. So they use all of these tactics to control and manipulate you.
Yeah. Because if they're not leaving, they'll manipulate you into staying. Like, they'll manipulate you into staying. It's just, and we'll get more into that as far as when we talk about how to heal.
And leaving, the discarding of leaving, we can talk about that later.
So if you're in any relationship and you've noticed your self-esteem has lowered since being in that relationship, you may be with a narcissist. If you don't recognize yourself, I personally remember, I used to do my Transformation Tuesdays, my videos. I look back on some of the stuff I did and I can't even watch it because I don't recognize that person. I don't recognize, you go into something very self-assured with this sense of esteem and confidence, and slowly but surely it's chipped away.
Yeah. It's almost like they consume you. They pull you in and manipulate so much, and they take your energy and your essence from you to the extent that because they need it.
Yeah.
You
said it perfectly. They mirror. It's like they're
Yeah.
sucking off of you, all of your great attributes, the attributes that, again, they present to the world they have. They're depleting you from that. Because in their mind, if they can deplete you, they can fill themselves up.
And you allow it because you're nurturing. Once you commit and
which is why
your spouse,
75% are men.
That's
because
why 75% are men.
Are nurturing by nature.
And men are not by nature. And so if you've committed to that, most women who are nurturers, who fall prey to this, they will, compromise. They'll acquiesce. They'll give to try to make it better, and that only makes the situation worse.
Yeah.
That makes it worse.
Makes it worse. So gaslighting, we've heard this term. So I'm gonna read this because I want to be clear with what gaslighting is. And this whole term of gaslighting evolved from a 1940s movie. Yes. Believe it or not, like in the 40s.
If you haven't seen the movie, it is definitely worth a watch. It was so eye-opening.
Oh my gosh, right? And in the 1940s, no one was talking about narcissists or anything of that. But this movie so perfectly depicted what narcissism is, that this term gaslighting evolved from it. So gaslighting is psychological manipulation that leaves you questioning your own sanity, and it's systematic.
Meaning intentional.
Very intentional. They deny your reality. So something that could have happened in the relationship, a conversation you had, I didn't say that. That didn't happen. What are you talking about?
It's like being in the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
It's like being in the Twilight Zone. Like what just happened? What is going on?
And after a while, if you stay in the relationship and you're gaslighted long enough, you start to doubt your own sanity, your own reality, your own memory, your own perception. And if you confront them, so if you say, you did say that, I have proof, I can show you in this text message here, then it becomes, oh, that's what we're doing now? It's turned on you. Yes. Oh, we're doing this in relationships.
Projection, yeah.
Now it's projection, total defense mechanism, classic projection. But it leaves you just doubting your own sense of reality there. And they may say you're crazy. Something's wrong with your memory. And they'll repeat this process again and again and again, saying it didn't happen that way. And after a while, it's almost like you kind of just subject yourself. If you decide to stay, you just kind of indoctrinate yourself into this whole dynamic.
But you don't have to necessarily stay. Sometimes even when they discard you or you decide to leave, and we'll talk a little bit more about discarding, then they flip it and try to control the narrative and say that you've done everything that they've done.
Yes.
They create their altered reality of what happened, and they will share that widely to try to discredit
Yes.
you and destroy your reputation. I think you talked about that as a characteristic
Mhm.
up front. They are known to try to do that because they have to protect any exposure of themselves and their flaws and insecurities.
Yes.
At all costs.
At all costs.
At all costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Children, family disruptions, professional careers destroyed. They don't care what it is. Whatever the cost, they will do everything to try to destroy you to preserve themselves.
Yeah.
It's not really about you.
Yeah.
It's about
never
protecting
about you.
themselves. It's always about them.
So, quick tells that you're being gaslighted, feeling the need to send long emails or text messages, to explain yourself, to be very descriptive, or second
Choosing your
guessing
words
yourself,
right.
choosing your words right with someone, and walking on eggshells, walking on eggshells because you may say something just so benign and it just triggers them and they blow off, and again, it's your fault. It's your fault that you got.
And they don't always blow up.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about the different types, but they don't always blow up. Sometimes it's eye contact. Sometimes it's the stonewalling.
Yeah, stonewalling. Yeah. Absolutely. Providing, again, recording conversations secretly, like that's a sign because you want to prove, or taking notes. They did say this, because they've started gaslighting you so much that now you want to record them as proof that what they've done.
And some of that might be for yourself, because you're starting to second guess yourself.
Oh my gosh. I know. Yes. Rehearsing conversations. Oh, wow. Look, I remember that. Okay, this is how I'm going to say it. When you're in a healthy relationship, you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to walk on eggshells or second guess, is this wording right, or how are they going to take this? You don't.
And that's
have
what
to.
Anybody listening to this show needs to understand that point.
Mm-hmm.
In a healthy relationship, you don't have to do all of those things.
Yeah. And some languages of gaslighting: stop being so sensitive. That never happened. We talked about that. Why are you always so angry? Why are you always so? Stop getting so worked up. You need help. It wasn't that bad. Yeah. It's all in your head. Why can't you take a joke? Why can't you take a joke? Oh my gosh, you always get like this around your period.
Yes.
Yeah. I even, and just in full transparency, I remember, because they will use, anything they feel that helps you feel validated or close, they'll use that against you, even sexual intimacy. So if if that's one of the ways you get close, because that is sexual intimacy is one of the ways you kind of get close, they will hold that back. They will hold off on sexual. I remember being accused of being a sex addict because I desired to have sexual intimacy with the person who was my partner.
And a normal partner would be enthusiastic about that.
and it's so interesting, because even in therapy, when the therapist said what you just said, like, please help me understand this, and this was a gay male therapist. He's like, I'm not getting it. Like, I'm looking and it was just like, oh no, it's totally, again, just because it's my fault, or you're crazy, or there's something wrong with you. It's the manipulation. And because they know that's important to you, that's part of the control. Let me withdraw that, because I know emotionally it's going to have an impact. It's all about breaking you down emotionally. It's all about and again, the impacts we talked about are confusion, anxiety, shame, shifts in identity, self-blame. You try to justify. You feel you've lost your instincts, your own personal instincts.
And you compromise away your principles and values.
Talk on that.
So oftentimes, especially, in some of the folks that I have interacted with, you compromised because you've committed. You're in it. You've sacrificed so much. You've invested so much. And so you begin to compromise away things that you normally would not.
Yeah.
Just to try to make things work, to try to make things better. If only I would do. If only I said. If only,
Because what you desire is a harmonious environment.
Right.
Again, that's what you desire. Like, narcissists tend to not choose other narcissists.
No. That's
Like,
that's a ticking time bomb.
That's a ticking time. That is, yeah, that's a show. Like that's a circus right there. They tend to again choose individuals that they've done their research, as you said, and they see they're pretty stable individuals, well adjusted,
very loving,
yeah,
nurturing,
yeah,
harmonious,
yeah,
likes to keep the peace, not full of drama.
not full of drama,
Not
yeah.
full of drama. They don't like to people full of drama because there's a low tolerance there. And so they know if they create drama, that person's going to react in the way that they want. And that's an opportunity for them to further manipulate and control.
But all those things you said that they choose, they start projecting, on you. You're full of drama. Yes. You always, why can't we just have a calm dinner without you, requesting that let's talk or all of. So another way that they attempt to control you is by, and we talked about this beforehand, shutting you down when you go to them to talk about, your feelings. Let's go to therapy, or let's talk about, or how can we make this better? Not just gaslighting, stonewalling, which is just a fancy word for the silent treatment. I mean, they can go weeks, they can go months without talking to you. And literally, you could go and beg this person, can we please talk? Like, I talk for a living. So that's the worst thing you could possibly ever do to me is stonewall me. But again, it's that awareness of knowing that this will get this person.
And something else we didn't talk about, Dr. Rose, is that they're pathological liars.
Yes.
So you get before a therapist or a pastor or whomever, and they make up scenarios, and you're like, what? Like, that never happened. And because they say it first, it makes it look like you are the person reacting to them revealing this deep, dark situation or story or incident that never happened or happened, and they were the aggressor.
And they just, again, flipped it around. All gaslighters are liars. I'm going to say it again. All gaslighters are liars. All liars aren't gaslighters.
No. Right.
But all gaslighters are liars. They just have to be. And again, in their mind, they will go to their grave swearing up and down because they will not ever hold themselves accountable.
Another psychologist said to me that they lie to so deeply and so frequently that they often create the lies that they've created become their reality. It becomes their reality, and they can't
hook them up to a lie detector test.
What's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's scary.
That's pathological. That's really pathological. So let's talk about the types of narcissists. So you have the grandiose narcissist, and I think that's the one most of us are familiar with. The one who's full of themselves. I'm better than you, and I know it. That's the textbook that
usually harmless.
Usually harmless. They just full of themselves. Got it like the Kanye song. Got
the
a
one
big
that's
ego.
annoying,
annoying. Just so full of themselves. Then you have the malignant narcissist, and this is the one that's scary and is a little more dangerous. So this is the one that says, I will do whatever it takes to get what I want. They will lash out or attempt to destroy other people in order to prop up his or her fragile sense of self. And again, those other people can be their significant other. Could be friends,
their children,
Yes. A lot of adults walking around now were raised by narcissistic parents. And unfortunately, when you have a parent who has a personality disorder, you're at a higher risk of having a personality disorder, but you don't have to have that. But I deal with a lot of adults, even in my practice, that are recovering from just being raised by narcissistic parents, and that's extremely damaging as well. So that's the malignant narcissist, and then this is a less known narcissist here, the covert narcissist. The covert. So if they had a saying, it's, I'm so great at this, but the world never noticed my talent. These are the ones who take on the victim role. It's everybody else's fault.
Everybody's fault.
I wouldn't be in this position if my teacher in high school hadn't did X, Y, and Z. I mean, they'll go way back. These are individuals, sometimes their covert narcissism is actually viewed as being depressed. People think they're depressed because I call them like the Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore,
Yes.
nobody
Nobody loves me.
They're always the victim. Why
In
don't they see my
any
talent?
situation, they can come in like what was that? The Tasmanian devil.
Yes.
Come into somebody's life and destroy everything, and they do it behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes,
they're the person that shanks you and hides the knife. They're the ones that are usually very charming.
Yes.
They're very charming, very likable
by
very
everyone,
unassuming,
and even supportive.
Yes.
Yeah. But what I noticed, so I'm glad you said that. So covert narcissists, again, these are the ones that play the victim. If only the world had given me a chance, if only this person had done that. These are the ones that really pull us in because, if you are a nurturing, well-adjusted person, you're like, this person just needs a little help. This part, I think about a friend that I had, and it was, again, I would offer everything. If I had workshops, comfort free. If I had this comfort, I would offer all of that stuff because it's like, for years you're telling me, how sad and you are and how unfair life is, but you're not willing to
do what it takes.
Yeah. And what I also noticed with covert narcissists, and I want you to tell me, they're there for people at their lowest. Like they're not going to necessarily celebrate people's wins, but they will be there to be that supportive person when you are at your lowest point. Because again, what the narcissists want to see, they want to see people who they view as having high self-esteem. They want to see them deflated.
Yes.
So these are the ones that's going to just come in like the knight in shining armor when you are, that's another red flag, the vulnerability.
Yes.
So when you are maybe grieving initially, or when
like
you are
when your mom passed
yeah,
away.
Yeah, or when you are grieving, or you are just fresh out of a relationship and maybe you're grieving the loss of a marriage or a relationship, but there's a level of vulnerability that they appreciate about that person at that time.
Because they can control you.
Because they can control you. The issue is when you start to get your strength back. I remember another real brief situation. But I remember when I said to myself, "Oh, I feel like I'm getting my strength back after a very difficult time." And when I started to get my strength back, that's when the narcissistic behavior started to escalate. Because what a covert narcissist likes is you to be controlled.
Under their thumb.
Yeah.
Seen but not heard.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody can relate to that.
Whew.
And then you mentioned malignant, and then you mentioned covert. But then there's covert malignant.
Talk about that.
So the covert malignant, and you're the expert, but in my research, that is the most dangerous.
My books and experience, unfortunately.
Yes. That is the most dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
Of the narcissistic personality disorders, because it's very subversive. It's very inconspicuous at first. And they are usually the greatest charmers, masterful at manipulation, usually very successful because they use people to get what they want. And so they end up climbing and progressing.
And this is the
covert
malignant. So understand
malignant.
that. So we talked about the grandiose, the malignant, the covert, but this is the covert malignant.
So it's combining these two traits together to create a really dangerous person. And these are the personality, the folks with the personality disorder that leave a trail of damage everywhere that they go. Children, relationships, families, women, men, just people are never the same. This is the lady I told you about who fled Ohio with her kids, trying to protect herself and her children, because this is when you read the stories about when you know that you're dealing with this personality, you have to flee. Don't try to battle them because we don't think like them.
No.
The way that they think and that they're wired, there's no limit. There's no empathy. There's no line that says, okay, that's too far. There's not even children. There is no line. They
That's
will
the
go
difficult part.
to
Yeah.
any lengths to get what they want.
Because again, our perception is not that a person can actually operate that way, because there's a cruelness to it.
It is.
There's there's cruelty to it, and
recklessness.
Recklessness is right, almost like borders some sociopathic behavior.
Yes.
But it's not. We don't want to say they're sociopathic, but it mirrors that in a way. With some of just the cruel things that they will do and say, and even if it's not physical, emotional cruelty. Emotional cruelty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Emotionally. And the covert narcissists, they don't want to do anything that is overly detectable. So they want to do things behind the scenes. They want to hide their actions and behaviors. Yeah. They don't ever want to be exposed. And that risk of exposure is what drives their attacks on their victims. When they decide to depart the relationship, or when those narcissistic tendencies come out, because they don't ever want anybody to know what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, and they'll deny. You can have all the evidence in the world. Yeah, you can confront
and create a narrative and a story that in their alternate reality is so believable to others that it makes it hard for you to even defend against.
I can write a book on some the stories that we created. Can write a book on that. So let's talk about we talked about the effects, even when you leave. So let's just say you recognize it and you've left. Leaving alone does not mean you're home free.
No. The beauty is if you don't have ties, if you're able to leave and
clean break. But usually they don't want that.
They don't want that.
Because they want to be able to have always some type of connection to you, especially malignant covert.
Yes.
Or covert malignant. They want to always have, be it a child, or just something, property. They'll drag things out. Yeah.
And so you have to, what all the research and evidence says, when you decide to end that, however it came to be, whether they left or you left, when it's over, just don't have any contact.
Yeah.
Because really, we're no match for that.
No, I don't care. I have, combined, we have decades of higher education.
Yeah.
Right? Higher. I'm talking higher education. And you're no match for it.
You're no match.
And actually what they want you to do at times is to
engage in it. They absolutely want that. Because it feels, they call it narcissistic supply.
Yes.
So they want that energy. They want you to they thrive on drama. They thrive on that interaction because they're empty. That's how they get, that relationships that we have, that intimacy that we like, that is their form of intimacy.
Yeah.
They need that. And so that's the best thing to do is just not give them any.
Cut all ties. And that can be difficult because one of the things that inevitably people I found, you still grieve it. And you may not do it for long once you start gathering your strength back, but initially you grieve that person because it is a loss.
And most times, let's be real, you don't know. Yeah. You don't know until you're out of it and you have an opportunity to reflect and look back and understand or seek help. Seek
help, which is
which is another step.
It's definitely a step. I've had people in narcissistic relationships will come and say, well, what about therapy? We can go with therapy. You're not, those of you who may be in a narcissistic relationship and you may hope that, okay, if we go to therapy, things will get better. It doesn't. And again, y'all know I'm probably the most optimistic, hopeful, glass is full person on the face of the earth. But I was sharing with Linda before we started how there's like a running joke in with my colleagues that if you refer someone, to one of us and they're narcissistic, like we call them up, like, why did you do that to me? Because you don't see improvement. It doesn't change. And I know how much people want to believe anything's possible. And let me just say, anything's possible. It's extremely rare.
Yes.
Extremely. It would take years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and we can multiply all those years exponentially. It would take years of therapy, behavior modification, for you to even see that dial of change a little.
Mhm.
And you have to ask yourself, what's the impact of that on you in the process?
Right.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, if someone has something innately um, off center to the extent that they can do so much damage to people that they have a deep relationship with, because it's usually the people closest to them that are most affected.
Mm-hmm.
And they watch and they thrive on the harm that they do to those individuals who love them the most.
Sounds sick, but it's true.
The likelihood that they will listen to somebody that is totally detached from them, which a therapist or a psychiatrist would be, is extremely low.
So what you usually find is you can start a psychotherapy, but they find something wrong with that therapist. I don't like that therapist. Mm-hmm. And then you'll go to another therapist. And these therapists, a good therapist is going to recognize this, and they're going to call this person out, confront, which is a tool, a therapeutic tool. Mm-hmm. And that's when that narcissistic person, they're done with that therapy. They're done with that therapy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because again, it's not about holding this person accountable. They don't go to therapy to change. They don't go to therapy to improve the relationship. Mm-mm.
No.
Not at all.
No. Yeah. And if they have reached their point where they have gotten everything they need to get from you, then they'll exit rather than enduring.
Oh my gosh.
That type of accountability, so to speak.
They're out.
Yeah.
They're out and happy about it. Mm-hmm. Happy about it. Oh my God. Oh, I got to.
And it's amazing how, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that they can change on a dime. You mentioned before the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or Mrs. Hyde. And it is literally like a switch.
That. Yeah. Which has you questioning your perception. Yeah. I remember going through probably 3-4 weeks of stonewalling, silent treatment. Mm-hmm. And, like, can we talk? Can we figure this out? I mean, I'm at a loss. What's going on here? And I remember a friend coming over to visit. It was a pop-up visit. They were in the neighborhood and they came. And this person opened the door and it was, oh, wow, welcome. Hey, honey, look who's here. Yeah. Look. And I just remember kind of just being stunned. Like, what is going on here? And I distinctly remember at that time, because I hadn't shared, because there's shame. There's shame, there's confusion, again, and that's what they want.
That fear of exposure.
So I hadn't shared with anyone. I remember when I did, and this was shortly of this whole situation, thank God. But when I did start sharing, that was when that's helped me get my power back. Mm-hmm. Because I remember that friend who came over again, putting on just the airs and the facade and so welcoming. And I remember asking her to go to another part of the house with me. Mm-hmm. And that's when I just revealed, I said, I want to share something with you. This person has not spoken to me in 4 weeks. This person, and I just started going down the line and she's looking, her eyes are getting wide, like, what? Because this is a person who just greeted and treating me so lovely in the moment. But I knew at that time, because it comes the time you recognize, especially in this, that this is what you're dealing with. Yes. And I knew my exit plan needed to come very soon, because I felt myself losing myself.
Yes.
Losing myself,
or having to defend yourself,
and
it can be scary. So let's talk about how we heal.
You first of all, you got to label this as abuse, because that's what it is.
It is.
And we know with abuse, physical abuse or emotional abuse, again, the victims oftentimes feel a lot of shame because you question, how did I get into this? But you have to admit, call it what it is. It's abuse. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to rationalize. It's abuse. It's abuse. So, admitting is the first step. Yes, like I just said, admitting I started to feel I have my power. Because if I can admit, everybody else has this perception of this person that's not true. If I can speak my truth, then I can start reclaiming myself.
Yes.
You have to end the relationship.
Oh, yes.
You have to end it.
Yes. There's all kinds of information out there about how you can sustain in a narcissistic relationship. And every person in every relationship
Everybody's
is
different because some people choose to stay.
But if you're having all these symptoms and you're seeing these signs and it's affecting you and you're compromising yourself and you're second guessing yourself, it's diminishing your self-esteem and your worth, that's not healthy.
Yeah. And when you do decide to, if you decide to leave, because again, God help the ones who decide to stay. Let me just say this: you're signing yourself up for a lifetime of therapy. You really are. You know, a lifetime of therapy or a lifetime of disconnect from self.
Yes.
Because you have to lose yourself. You have to lose yourself in that in order to
match it.
Or match it. My gosh! And which is why a lot of victims of narcissistic abuse, when they do leave or they're there, they start saying, "I'm a narcissist." Yes. Like, because for relationships to remain and to endure, they have to vibrate at that same frequency. Yes. So the narcissist is not about to come to your frequency, so you've got to go to the narcissist frequency. Doesn't mean
you want to do that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to make a choice. When I encountered that, I made a choice that I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you did too. Yeah. You were like, I'd rather leave than do that. Because ultimately you are the beautiful person that you are as God made you. And you don't want anybody to alter that. I tell my kids all the time, don't ever allow anybody or any situation or circumstance to alter who you are.
Yes. And that's part of the healing too. You have to rediscover yourself. Yes. You have to. But when and if you decide to leave, or if and when you decide to leave, three things are likely to happen. They'll beg you to stay. They'll promise that they'll change. And or I should say, or they'll start smearing your reputation. They'll smear your reputation. So what those three things are just key in what typically follows when a person decides to leave. They beg you to come back. They promise they'll change. It won't change. Or they'll smear your reputation. You have to, you mentioned this, set boundaries. Yes. No contact, know, and if you have children, there are ways. I tell people there are ways you can have children and not have contact with that other person.
People do it all the time.
People do it all the time.
And you know what? It's so unfortunate because children deserve
and I'm not, let me just say
better.
This real quick. I'm sorry, because I want to say, I'm not saying keep the kids out the person's life.
Oh, no.
What I'm saying is there are ways that you guys can co-parent without you having to be involved with regular contact with this person.
And it takes a strong person to be able to interact in that way without getting entangled.
Yeah.
Because they will try to loop you in and do things. Remember, the whole point is to control you. They chose you to attach to you and mirror you, and they don't want to just let that go.
Yeah.
They want to keep it going. And so
they'll use the kids to keep
they'll use whatever tool they can to try to entangle you.
You mentioned this, avoid retaliation, because that's what they want. They want you to retaliate. Oh, they feed off of that.
Not anymore.
Oh my gosh. I know maybe the one or two times that I just had it and I felt myself go there, it was almost like a look of pleasure on the face. Like, yes, I got her. Because that's controlling your behavior. I made her do it. I was able to manipulate her emotions and control that behavior. I talked about anticipate grief, because it is a loss and you're going to have to do a lot of self-evaluation. So there's a grieving process with it. But that's part of healing.
It is.
Grieving is part of healing. Express your emotions. Therapy. Because
professionals can help you to see who you are and know that you're not crazy. All that gaslighting and second guessing yourself. You need some objectivity to help you balance and ground and reroute again.
Yeah. Rediscover yourself. It's so, because you've lost yourself. This being in a narcissistic abusive relationship, when you stay in that and you decide to stay in that for any length of time, inevitably you have to disconnect from yourself. You lose yourself. You because you start questioning all this different reality, and for you to stay in the relationship, you cannot be that person who recognizes abuse, that this is
Mhm.
abuse,
Mhm.
or recognizes this isn't healthy, you have to, again, indoctrinate yourself into this narcissistic dance.
Mhm.
As a result, when you decide to leave, you're left with wondering, who am I?
And just think about, if somebody's been in this relationship pattern for a long time, when you get to that place where you say, okay, this is a problem, I know that I need to do something different for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they start the cycle all over again. They love bomb you.
Yeah.
They start that cycle all over again to reel you back in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've
Oh
got
my
to
goodness.
have, it really does take a lot of setting those boundaries. Once you make that decision, stick to it.
Yeah.
Stick to it.
Stick to it. Implement self-care rituals. Forgive yourself.
Yeah.
That's a
Forgiveness
big one.
is huge.
Forgiveness is
Yourself and the narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because forgiveness is for you,
Yeah.
not for the individual.
Yeah.
And regardless of their reasons, and everything they did to you is real, but you have to forgive them so that you can move on with your life and receive all the blessings that are in store for you in the future.
Absolutely. And what helps you forgive that person, because that was a tough one for me. But what helps you forgive it is understanding the origins of their narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding this was someone who did not receive the proper nurturing at a time, key developmental stages in life.
Yes.
And again, that's not to take any fault off of that person, because they're an adult, and just like all of us, we have a responsibility.
That's right.
As adults, to do what we need to, but to help you forgive this person so you don't have to carry that around. Right. Understand the origins. Be thankful that that wasn't your origin.
Yes.
And if you have children with this person, just you kind of have to go into double time.
Yeah.
Because even unfortunately, as children get older, the parent is still narcissistic. And you have to, I remember a client years ago that was in this situation with two young children. And it was as if after the kids spent the weekend with a narcissistic ex, that she would have to go into overdrive, kind of damage control, in helping them understand reality. Because that time away with this narcissist will be spent just creating a whole different reality for the kids as it pertains to the mother, that now she'd have to go back and remedy.
And to not reproduce that cycle of narcissism, provide that love and nurturing to your children so that they have a context and a framework for what that means, and they don't have to suffer that trauma as much as possible.
Yeah. So, and this other one is when it talks about going back into the dating world. I remember I purposely dated someone out of state after this situation.
I can see that.
Because I was so unsure of myself. I did not even, it was comforting for me to have that element of distance while I worked on myself, while I rediscovered, and reclaimed, my power and myself. So that was like a buffer for me. Because you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to doubt your judgment, your insight. But just know that's natural. Know that's natural.
Part of the healing.
And asking yourself, trust.
Trust is a big factor after dealing with that kind of abuse. Any abuse. Yeah. Because somebody violated you. You gave your heart, you gave your love, your support, your sacrifice, you compromised, and that person violated your trust.
They violated it.
And so trust usually is a very difficult factor to overcome, and it just takes time.
Yeah.
Self-actualization and rediscovering yourself will help restore trust too.
And part of restoring that is reflecting on what you learned from the whole situation. What you've learned,
and how not to repeat it.
How not to repeat it. How not to repeat it. And that's why it's important to do the work, the self-work. Because if you don't do the self-work, you will find yourself repeating that.
Yes,
you will find yourself repeating it. And another thing, the last thing, I will protect yourself on social media. Protect. You don't have to be friends with this person. Block them. Do not create another account so you can see what's going on. They'll likely do it.
Yeah. Those boundaries, those boundaries are real important.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a good point. Trying to figure out what they're doing,
Yeah.
it's like re-injuring yourself over
and over
again.
Yes.
Move on with your life. Live your life. Be happy.
On.
Move on.
Yeah.
Because you're okay. You're okay.
Ooh,
You're okay.
Yeah. Say it again.
You are okay.
So you want to give it a few, see if any questions or anything online real quick. So I'm going to go on and see if anyone has asked any questions. Let's see.
I have a very wise person, while you look that up, said, that when you're in a relationship with a narcissist and they're love bombing you and everything is wonderful, and then the switch happens and they become Mr. Hyde. That person is not there. And that's something to remember.
Say that again. I need you to say that.
The person that love bombed you, the person that was so wonderful, that prince or princess charming, they no longer exist. That person's gone.
Yeah.
They're gone. You can't recreate that. And so when that's over, and that's for anybody who is dealing with that and thinking about, if I just do one more thing, if I just, that person's gone. Once that switch happens, they're gone.
They're gone. And they're not coming back.
And they're not coming back.
You're going to be chasing. You're going to be chasing forever something, because that was not even real.
It wasn't real.
What you have now is the real person. Yeah. Someone, I'm reading some. We have a lot of comments. We have. So Brandy B says, I look in the mirror and I don't even recognize myself anymore. I have the worst anxiety now. That is an after effect. Anxiety disorder. Not trusting yourself. And Brandy, I hope some of the things that we shared tonight, you're able to really take and start moving forward, because it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
And remember, it is abuse.
Yeah.
So there are the resources and help out there to help people who are being abused. Use those resources. Call. The domestic violence hotline isn't just about physical abuse.
It's not just about physical abuse, because this is surely emotional abuse. Someone, Kimmy says, fear of children being gaslighted. And that's unfortunate but true. Oh, I got to. Oh
boy. But there's nothing you can do to control another person.
Yeah.
And if it gets to a point where the children are being abused, remember, this is abuse. So if the children are being abused, then there's a process to follow to protect the children. And use that. Use the court system. Call, the school, the counselor at the schools. There are outlets and resources to help if you feel like your children are being abused.
And provide your children with a safe place to be able to come and tell you what's happening. And you listen to them. You don't do the gaslighter and not validate them, but you listen to them and you allow them the space to be able to process the gaslighting that they
never do it yourself. No matter what they say, if they're gaslighting children, it's usually about the other parent, right?
Absolutely.
And so the worst thing that you can do to that child is do it too. Is talk about that other parent, because the children are in the middle. They just want to love mommy and daddy. And if mommy or daddy is saying something horrible about the other, it's a reflection on themselves, because they identify with their mothers and their fathers. And so the worst thing you can do is contribute to that by saying something negative about that other parent.
Because you said something, you said something very key. They identify with both parents.
They do. And they should be
allowed.
Don't you have fond memories? You just posted something on Facebook about your parents.
Yes.
I have such fond memories of my parents. I never had a bad, my childhood was wonderful.
Same here.
I didn't experience any bad. I mean, I hate to say this, but I'd never experienced people who would do these kinds of things.
I tell people all the time, the trauma came in adulthood. Like, I wasn't traumatized by my parents.
No.
I was traumatized later on. Oh, we got to, because we put a pin in it and we go, because I know we're over.
Yes, we did. Yes.
So yes, narcissists, especially the covert malignant, will target individuals that appear to have come from a very stable household, because what that does, is it almost, again, they didn't get that. So
they
if
want
they
to
can
mirror that.
if they can mirror it, or if they can rob you, I have to share. There was one time I was sitting up watching Blackish,
Mm-hmm.
and there was something funny that happened. The kids had all gotten the flu, and they were trying to jump in the bed, because they're sick with the parents. And I'm laughing, and I say, "Oh my God, remember when you used to get sick and you jump in the bed with your parents?" And the response was, "I'm sick of hearing about your happy ass childhood." This was in the middle, like this came out of nowhere. I'm watching a comedy show and I'm, laughing, and it just immediately, you can imagine how that even just sucked the life out of me at that moment, because I'm sharing, as you said,
You're
online.
shocked.
I'm sharing a fond memory of childhood. And I also noticed there will be, if you are the victim, the again, we hate to use that word, but we're going to use it. But if you are on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, and you have children and you're very nurturing to your children, don't be surprised if there's jealousy there too.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, they're witnessing the nurturing and the love
that they never received. So, any last words? I thank you so much, but any last words you want to share? Thank you for having me. I think that we're going to have to do a part 2.
Oh, yes.
There's so much that we didn't get to talk about that we want to share.
And give us feedback, guys, if you want more.
So many comments, I think this is a very important topic. And I think that it's important that we shed light on a lot of the hidden, things in society that occur in everyday life that impact all of us in a deep way that we often sweep under the rug. Because like you said before, there's shame, there's embarrassment. And, there's no need to be embarrassed by somebody else's actions and behaviors.
No.
And that's why I keep saying to the camera that you are okay. There's nothing wrong with you. We are all beautifully and perfectly and wonderfully made. And if somebody takes advantage of that, there's something wrong with them.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Nothing wrong
with you. We're created to
Yeah.
love and be loved. And as long as we're doing that, we are doing the right thing to receive all the blessings that life has to hold. And anybody who violates that, you need to protect your space. Protect yourself.
Your space. Yeah, yeah.
And if you're involved in a relationship with a narcissist, or still dealing with the aftermath of it, because there could be complete devastation.
Years. The aftermath can last for years.
We talked about people being homeless, people falling into substance abuse, people being sold into sex trafficking.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of scenarios that we didn't talk about.
Even children, that's why it's a part 2, because even
well.
children have a higher frequency, if you stay in that situation, of having personality disorders.
Yes, they do. And so, it's really important that we talk about this, that you do what it takes to take care of yourself. And even during the pandemic, there's a lot of information coming out now, starting to come out, about people with personality disorders and abusive tendencies being illuminated and more prevalent during the pandemic, because of the circumstances of people having to be in such close proximity, isolated together. And so if you're going through that, speak up, seek help. You can call domestic violence abuse hotline. They are, it is abuse. Emotional abuse is abuse.
Yes.
But there's all kinds of things: financial abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. And so either one of those is abuse. And so verbal abuse, we forgot about that one. And so you can call the domestic violence hotline, call a therapist.
And we'll put numbers on this thread too. We definitely will. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much,
always
guys.
Good to see you.
And we always great to see you. We're gonna go and have some girl time right now. But guys, any questions you may have, both of us will, be on the thread to answer questions. If you'd like to see a part 2, let us know. If there's specific things you'd like us to touch on, be more than willing to do that as well. But I appreciate you all. And just remember, your voice is your power, and transparency transcends. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't keep it to yourself. Everyone deserves, as Linda said, to just be in a place of wellness. Of wellness. So, Mental Health Awareness Month. One more week left, and we'll be coming with more just good keys and features for you guys to just take into consideration how our mental health and mental wellness is a part of our everyday life. And this is one of the topics that doesn't get a lot of light, even though it's a very the word is thrown around. It doesn't. People really don't understand because I believe a lot of folks, as I'm reading the comments, were able to kind of identify some things that they've experienced that they didn't realize they were in a narcissistic situation there. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yes.
Stay well, stay
Dr.
safe.
Rose, thank you.
Thank you, hon. I appreciate it. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Love it.